Hey everybody, I'm Sierra,
And I'm Ben.
and welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Hey babe,
Hello, Sierra.
we're back.
We're back.
You did it.
We survived another week.
Mm-hmm.
We're back for episode 5.
Season 1, episode 5
Yeah.
of Ben's favorite show.
This is seems like it just drags, doesn't it? This
It does not drag.
This show is long. How are we only in episode 5?
Hey, you know what? Speak for yourself. I'm having a great time getting to sit down and spend this time with you.
This is the best part. It's watching the show. That's the long part.
Hey, you know what? I think our host Robert looked very dashing this week.
I want you to. Do you realize how opposite we prepare for this show?
No, tell me.
Sierra prepares with a computer.
Mm-hmm.
I have a notebook that I take notes that I write by hand.
You know, it's funny because everything else, like I don't keep my calendar in my phone, and to some people that probably like blows their mind to not use. Like I do everything. I have a humongous day planner and I write everything down in there. And if it's not there in that planner, I will not show up. But it is, when it comes to this sort of thing, I have to take typing notes. I just do better with that. So I can't explain it, but yeah.
Yeah, but I can't type. I got to write it all down.
Yeah, Ben's got his cute little notebook
Yeah, I like my notebook.
and writes all of his things down. So,
All right, so we made it. We're at season 1, episode 5.
yep. Mm-hmm.
This was a big one. What was your thoughts on this one? Here.
Okay.
I am asking
Me. Okay,
Yeah.
so I will say at the time this aired, I think this would have been a really exciting one to watch because of the cases that it covers tonight. They were really relevant at the time. Yeah. The last one was a snooze fest for me, but that's just because it involved, what did I call it the other night? Sports ball?
Sports ball. Oh, the last story.
The
on
last
here. I thought you were
story.
talking about last episode.
No, the last
I can't
story.
even remember last episode. I literally try to watch this show, make the notes so that we can record, and then I do everything in my power to forget it.
Let's let the people in on. So Ben is taking our second story today. There's only 3 stories, and we're going to get into it pretty quickly because Ben is taking the second story. And I think you actually watched this episode before I did.
Yes.
And you said, just wait till you get to the second one.
story it's crazy.
Yeah, it took you down. Ben's probably done 6+ hours of research on what was in Unsolved Mysteries, maybe a 10-minute episode or 10-minute of the episode.
Yeah, it's a chunk. I was realizing they spent most of their time on the first one, which is, we'll get into it. It's DB Cooper.
Yeah.
So
BD Cooper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, DB.
Is it DB?
Yeah.
I wrote down
Delta Bravo Cooper.
Oh, okay. Alphabet boy.
So yes, it's DB Cooper. And and they actually spent most of their time on that one.
Mm-hmm. Which at the time, this was on everyone's mind.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And then the second one, it's probably only 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
But and then the last one is not.
Yeah. So Ben to have watched this episode and not be, obviously this is not his jam, but to then call me and tell me the rabbit hole that he went down. And we're only going to skim over it because if not, we would be here for a couple of hours going over this.
Yeah, we're not. I'll get into it, but
okay,
we'll kind of lay it out before we go.
All right.
But
anything you want to share with our friends? How your week was, or
no? Why would I want to do that?
I don't know. I'm trying to bring you out of your shell.
No,
I'm trying to get you to make friends with all of our peoples.
No, I don't make friends. That's good.
Well,
I'm good.
I'll share. I had a great weekend. Ben last weekend went to Idaho to visit his family. They live up in Idaho and he took the kids, and I ended up actually having some work that needed to be done for a house, and my client was out of town. And on top of that, trying to find a house sitter for our house. Anyways, long story short, it was easiest for all of us for me just to stay home. And I had realized only a few days before Ben left that in 13 years, I had never been home alone for maybe a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It was a big deal. So I had a great time. I went to Trader Joe's and I bought stuff and I made a giant charcuterie board and ate an adult, what is it, Lunchable all weekend long.
An adult Lunchable. I guess that's
I got a bunch of work done and I had my friend over and we watched Practical Magic. So I love that movie.
Yeah. It's your favorite time of year?
It's my favorite time of year, even though I'm ready to cry and scream at the same time because today was 109 degrees.
Yeah.
And I'm ready for sweater weather.
I mean, but when this comes out, it'll be a few weeks later.
Do not jinx us. Let us pray.
It will. If it's still that.
If it's still that, I give up. Okay. Yeah. So let's get into it. So I will do BD Cooper. Nope, sorry, DB Cooper. Good night.
Is it BD?
Now it's in my head.
Now you're messing me up. You are messing me up.
And it's
DB Cooper.
Yeah, it is DB.
I knew it.
Yeah, see? Dan Cooper was the name. Yeah. So in Unsolved Mystery, in this episode, this was only part 1 of 2 segments that they did on this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is in this episode. Just to condense things down,
I'm covering part 1 and 2. We're just going to do the highlights. We're going to kind of go over it quickly because here's the thing. If you are someone interested in DB Cooper, there are all kinds of documentaries, podcasts, theories, all kinds of stuff. So we'll just kind of go over it.
I listened to a podcast on it.
Yeah, you did.
Called Infamous America, if I want to say it.
Yeah, and he did a great job.
No, he did. It was a multiple part series. It was awesome because I listened to it years ago. And I'll be honest, I didn't know much about it. I kind of heard it, but I didn't know anything about it. I listened to that. It was really good. He dives into it. Really good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's now...
There's a Netflix documentary on it if you're...
But it's now 2024.
This was very relevant.
Well, at the time, it was still... I mean, I guess it was... What was this? This happened in 1971. So it was less than 20 years old.
I think it was like 11 or something year when this came out.
So, it was... It was still
newer, I mean, technically to this day, this is still an unsolved mystery. We don't have a definite answer.
You're spoiler alert. Them the spoiler alert at the end. We give updates after we tell the story.
But I'll give the updates of what there is. There was some breaking news in January of this year.
No, there wasn't.
Yes, there was. Okay,
no, there wasn't.
2 p.m., November 24th, 1979.
Oh, 79. I'm sorry. I said
71. Good night. I'm on it tonight.
People already turned this off.
I know.
Right
we
now.
have
we
did a new setup with our microphones, and it's like throwing me off on where I need to set my computer at to read. Okay. 1971, a man purchased a one-way ticket for $18.52. Ben, what's your guess on inflation?
1971. $18?
Yep.
$92.
143.
Woof, I was way off.
Way off. So on a Northwest Airlines Boeing 727. Put a pin in that because the 727 is important to know. Okay,
yes,
he was going from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. He paid in cash and claimed that his name was Dan Cooper. Now, for everyone post 9/11, and I'm sure even earlier than that, there was a lot of changes to security. Pre 9/11. No, post 9/11, there was a lot of changes in security.
Yes, yeah.
However, pre 9/11, you still had to show ID and stuff to travel. But back in 1971, you did not.
I would be shocked that if TSA even existed back then.
Yeah, it seems pretty casual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he paid cash, just shows up, you don't show ID, and they just ask his name. And
they just handwrite it down.
Handwrite his name down and give him a ticket.
Okay.
And I mean, back then, right? Like, there's no checking flights or whatever. You show up to the airport.
I know.
And say, I need a flight to here.
For anyone with travel anxiety, can you imagine trying to plan stuff? I guess
like,
that's why you had like travel agents, right? Like if you were planning like a Disneyland trip or something, you had to go through.
Agent. I'm not that balla.
My travel agent is Costco. Yeah. So the only luggage though he had, and I'm sure between Portland and Seattle, it's a short flight. There's probably a lot of business guys and gals that going back and forth. That would be my guess. So he showed up. He's dressed in all black. The biggest red flag that apparently nobody caught was he's wearing his sunglasses the whole time. If anyone wears their sunglasses inside, I got my eyes on you.
Did you notice they called it an attaché
okay,
case?
Yes, I know. Which is just a briefcase.
Yeah.
But where else is the word attaché attached to a true crime story?
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I know this? And
anyone who has the very basic knowledge of true crime.
And I don't.
Okay. So JonBenet Ramsey, the ransom letter that was left at her house mentions that the ransom money is to be delivered in an attaché.
Okay, old man.
Well, no one uses that word.
Robert Stack did. Okay.
They said it a lot in this episode. But that's every time they kept saying that word, that's all I kept thinking was the ransom note from that case.
I like that word.
I do too.
It's kind of like Worcestershire sauce. I love Worcestershire sauce. And I'm saying that wrong, but
Worcestershire
sauce.
Okay. So anyways, back to
can we get going here? Come
B.B.
on.
Cooper.
You're holding us up.
So he's the last person to board, which props to him because that's my dream. If I'm the last person on that airplane, I am in heaven. I do not want to sit and wait. So he's the last person on,
and there's
takes
like
his
10
seat.
People.
He sits down and slips a note to the stewardess.
His phone number.
Who also doesn't think anything of it because she's so used to men hitting on her and like leaving them their phone number. She doesn't even read it. So as they're like getting ready to take off, no one has given me their phone number in 17 years. As they're getting ready to take off, he says, "Miss, you better take a look at that note." So she opens it up and it says that he had a bomb inside the attaché case. So he shows it to her. He reveals that he's got some sticks of dynamite and some contraptions and is told to pass a note to the captain, but for the other crew members not to freak out. No alarms were going to be raised. They needed to act casual and behave as if nothing out of the ordinary was going on. The note also ordered the captain to divert the plane to Seattle, which they were already going there, so that doesn't make any sense. Which the pilots did, informing air traffic control of the hijacking. However, they told the passengers that they were diverting the flight due to a mechanical failure. He had requested for 4 parachutes, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, and $200,000 in cash. Adjusted for inflation, Ben?
1971. It's more than triple. Right around 1980s triple.
Okay.
So I'm going to say 750,000.
1.5 million. Not even close.
Way off.
Asking that the plane did not actually land until the requirements were met. So the FBI, we get an interview from the FBI agent, and this is brand new information to me. So the FBI agent tells us that they reached out to the airline and says, "Hey, do you want to pay this or not? Because if you don't, like the law enforcement the FBI will help obviously take care of the hijacking issue. But if you want to pay the ransom, we will also facilitate that with you.
Yeah.
And the airline, because oddly enough, plane hijacking or plane piracy
Come on, let's use the good words.
was taking place so often that airlines had like money set aside to pay off ransoms.
I guess
So.
I will say this was the amazing thing. So the airline says,
Sure.
they say absolutely we're
Yeah,
gonna pay.
we'll pay it.
Which is crazy to me that law enforcement's like, hey, what
Do you want us to help you orchestrate this?
Do? I know. And so,
hello, sir. This is the FBI calling. Yep. We would like to know if you would like to pay the ransom or not. If you do, we'd be happy to help you.
we'll get you. We'll help.
We'll get everything organized and taken care of. You know what? Actually, we'll get the parachutes. You bring the cash. We'll meet at the airport.
But it's crazy. It took off what they say around 2:00. Mm-hmm. And they tell us it lands at 5:43 p.m. So in 3 hours and 43 minutes, they're able to gather $200,000.
Yep. They had one of those machines that counted the money.
But not only that, he then tells us they photographed. They have every serial number to the bills. Like they were able to do that. I was impressed. I was like, that's a lot of work.
Riddle
and like,
been impressed. Color him pink.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of work and
I know those FBI agents.
Especially for government workers.
Okay, so what I also find amazing is that the passengers on board chill. This should literally be a 30-minute flight.
Here's the thing. I grew up in Portland.
Yeah, the drive to Seattle's not that far.
It's a 3-hour drive.
So flight, you're looking at, So
they're now at 3 hours and 43 minutes. They could have driven there faster.
Yeah, so I would be irate. But they were like, passengers were chill. They had no clue anything was going on. They're getting served drinks. Mr. Cooper orders 2 like bourbons and water.
Bourbons.
Gross. Drink it like a man. Okay.
Well, maybe the water was to flush it down after.
I don't know. I don't know why anyone. That's just a weird combination. Okay, so long story short, FBI gathers all of the things and they meet at the airstrip where the plane is landed to refuel.
Yeah, but they kept it away from the terminal.
Yeah, again, no one asked any questions when they came. I need you to get off the airplane, but we're like way out in the middle of nowhere.
Passengers are getting a little like antsy. Like, what's going on?
Also, this once again proves my point that when you're flying and the captain goes and you can't understand what they're saying, they're not telling you everything. They're telling you nothing. When you've been sitting on the tarmac for 2.5 hours and you hear you're not going to get the true story.
It's just going to be a few more minutes, everybody.
No, that is one of the biggest lies we've ever been, and I will refer you back to this story. Okay, so a stewardess hops off the airplane, grabs all the stuff, hops back on the airplane. Everybody gets off. That's when they're informed by the FBI, hey, by the way, not only was there a hijacking, but he had a live bomb. Can you give us a quick description? And they were like, no one noticed this guy. He was in the back row. He was unremarkable. Okay. So he then orders that the plane take off again, departing from Seattle, headed toward Mexico City at a height of 10,000 feet, speed of 200 miles per hour. Okay.
Okay.
He agreed because the captain is interviewed on this, and he seemed like a no-nonsense guy.
No nonsense.
Yeah. He tells him that he can't fly that far without stopping for refuel. And so he agrees for them to refuel in Reno, Nevada, and he also requested to have the back stairwell left down. However, once again, the captain's like, we can't take off and fly with the back of the plane just open.
Yeah, he says, I can't take off with that open.
Yeah.
He's like, tough luck, I ain't doing it.
Yeah. So, fine. Everyone is settled. The plane takes off. All of the crew is like up in the front.
Yeah, they said a couple of the stewards got off that left him with the
One
two
stewardess
pilots,
stayed.
one stewardess, and the pilots.
And the pilots. That's all that's on the plane. But even the stewardess is in the cockpit.
Yeah, she's with the pilots.
Yeah. So as they are around 8:10 over the Lewis River in southeastern Washington, they get an alarm that the rear door exit has been opened, right? The pressure's dropping.
Pressure changed.
Mm-hmm. While in flight, they're assuming that's when he jumped, right? With the cash.
You know what assume means.
I do know what assuming means. So he had the money and the parachutes. He was never seen again.
Yeah. So they say what? That little while later they went, checked, he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
Right.
So that was half the problem is they didn't depart right away because obviously they didn't want to come out and cause any more. This seemed like they said the guy was starting to get really kind of agitated. They didn't want to push the button. So when the air pressure dropped, they didn't immediately go out there. They waited a while. So
I think, yeah,
that's one of the mysteries is we don't know exactly how.
When he jumped.
Yeah, exactly when he jumped. So it never seen from again. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we have is February 10th, 1980. Some of the marked cash was found in the mud near the Columbia River. It was found by like a little boy digging with his family, 25 miles from the apparent jump point.
From the spot they thought he jumped.
Yeah.
At.
So that suggests that Cooper may have perished in the woods or landed in the Columbia River and drowned.
Yeah. They also said in November 1978, a placard from a 727 was found in the woods somewhere in Washington.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
But they don't really know if it was from that plane, but they
But none of the
assume.
money has ever been put into circulation.
Okay. But did you catch something in this story?
What?
So they're talking. So after they tell it, he jumps. Okay. The FBI agent starts giving us his theories, right?
Yeah.
Did
you write his quotes down?
Not the FBI. Did you notice the guy they interviewed?
No.
This one dude literally just comes on. People, I can't make this up. Unsolved Mysteries decides we're going to interview this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Howe. You know Frank Howe?
How did he get on Unsolved Mysteries?
Who is this guy? They literally say, according to Frank Howe, and Frank Howe then tells us his theories.
Okay.
You know what we don't know?
Why he's here?
Who in the HE double hockey sticks
Who in the how is Frank Howe?
Is Frank Howe? Who is this guy?
Don't know.
What expertise does this guy
But that
hold?
has been on track, on par with Unsolved Mysteries now. Is Enter Stage Right some random person? This just some guy on the production staff that was in charge of getting the snacks, and he's like, oh, I have something to say about that.
Theory.
And they were like,
do you want
perfect.
to hear some of his quotes?
Sure.
All right.
Shoot him to us.
Here's the thing. I'm going to assume Frank Howe is a survival expert.
Okay.
Literally, people, I'm just making a guess.
Okay, based on his quotes.
Just like Frank Howe's making a guess. Frank Howe comes on, and he tells us this, because they're now laying the scene. They're now telling us, they're giving us his theories about what happened.
The Pacific Northwest and
Frank
its
Howe
rugged
says,
woods, yeah.
Let's say he went down in the water. You've got to know how to manage that parachute. You can use it for some flotation. I bet you didn't know that. Now, his life expectancy is not going to be very long in that water. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's cold.
It's wet.
And you have to think of the time of the year it was. So he had probably very, very few minutes to get on shore. But I think he could have done this. That's your expertise, Frank Howe.
Thank you, Howe.
The FBI guy then says he thinks he fell and that he then crawled to a creek and died. Where he got that, I don't know. He just wandered to a creek and died. Then Frank Howe comes back and he gives us this little nugget of expertise. We don't know what he wore under that suit.
Oh, yes.
Could have had could have had a pair of long underwear on, which he certainly should have. All right, everybody. If you guys are all deciding to jump from a plane in November, Frank House telling us you should probably have a long pair of underwear on, which he should have. And what he had in his pockets may have been the most important thing, because this would have given him the tools of survival.
They have like a Swiss Army
as
like
long as
knife
a
in there.
man got a knife, a cigarette lighter, the clothes on his back, he could have lived indefinitely out there.
I've watched that show alone, and they got more than that, and they don't make it very long.
He could do it. It's possible, Frank House says. And then he says, you know what I think? He says, I think he buried that parachute. He buried that briefcase. He loaded his pockets full of cash.
But they never spent any of it.
Went to a big city and got lost. That's Frank Howe. No one knows who this guy is. No one knows how he relates to this case.
But
he just shows up and just starts telling. I mean, I could come in and just start telling you theories of what people could do in the world.
Sure. Why not?
Why not? Hey. And if you're going to jump from an airplane, wear long underwear.
You heard it here. Not first, I guess, but.
And you know what? From now on in my life, I'm going to carry a knife and a cigarette lighter and the clothes on my back.
You can't take either of those things, I don't think, onto an airplane. Maybe the cigarette lighter, but you can't take a knife. They'll take that away from you.
I'm just saying, out in the real world, when I go in the real world, wherever I go, just in case I decide to get lost in the woods, I've got a knife and a lighter, and I will live forever.
That's all you need.
I mean, I just wish those people on that show alone would do that, because
those people on Alone have a lot more than those two things, and they don't make it very long.
I just was so dumbfounded by this guy and why he shows up and what expertise he rolls into this.
See, thank you, babe. I appreciate your input on that. Okay, so let me just give you some quick updates. January 2024. Okay, there is.
Let me guess. Someone confesses to being DB.
No, so that real quick, I will tell you the other thing. 7 people to date have confessed to being DB Cooper.
A lot.
Okay. So, however, it was noted that when he entered the plane, he had a tie.
Okay.
When he left his tie on the seat next to where he had been sitting in the back. Okay. Nobody wants to jump off a plane with a tie around their neck.
It will be
flapping around everywhere.
Well,
what if it got cut in the engine jet? Yeah.
Frank Howe tells us he could have worn something crazy under that suit.
Maybe. It was Thanksgiving Eve. Maybe he had a turkey suit on, like one of those onesie pajamas.
Probably.
I bet that's what it was.
But it was.
So he took his tie off.
Do you think he's still living out in the woods right now?
He's like...
I mean, if he had
indefinitely. He's got a pocket knife and everything. There's some crazy man in a onesie, long underwear.
With long pajamas, with a pocket knife and a lighter. Mm-hmm. And he stole all that money so that he could live in the woods forever.
Forever.
All right. We solved it.
So the FBI to this day still has this tie. Okay. They tested it and they had 100,000 particles left behind on the clip-on fashion accessory, right? The FBI found out that this was purchased at J.C. Penney's around Christmas time, 1964, for $1.49. I did not adjust that for inflation, and we're not going to worry about it.
$8.
Okay. The things found on that tie contained a unique particle that was part stainless steel and part titanium. Okay. This same mixture was tied back to a steel plant in Pennsylvania that worked commonly with Boeing airplanes in Seattle.
Oh, so he worked on planes, supposedly.
And supposedly with the insider knowledge of that this door could even be opened in flight, that was one of the reasons why this plane was picked, along with it was the only plane that was safe to jump from.
Yeah.
At that. So that's like where exactly specifically like the certain kind of plane was important. There is a man who is like trying to solve this story. He's actually submitted, he wants to have access to that tie to do some more forensics testing and things like that. And I'll give you a quote that he said. It reminds me a little bit of our last week's treasure story.
Oh, I can't wait.
I would not be surprised at all if 2024 was the year we finally figured out who this guy was.
Just 2 more feet.
So, there you go. Again, if you guys want more information on P.D. Cooper, technically this is still an unsolved mystery. Supposedly it might be solved this year. I'll believe it when I see it. There's a lot of information out there.
It's just a mystery that nobody cares about anymore.
I think it's a little overdone at this point.
Yeah.
If you want my honest opinion, the fact that none of this money's ever been spent, I think he died. I think it's possible at some point, someday, someone's going to be out in the woods of the Pacific Northwest and come across his body.
Probably already deteriorated. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter.
I don't know. Attaché, that sounds real fancy.
We could sit here. Everyone has a theory, but no one knows.
No one knows. Let's get How in here. See if he can share his insight. All right, babe. So how do you want to break this down? Should we just share the story like we heard it on Unsolved Mysteries and then...
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
All right, we're going to share this next one, How Unsolved Mysteries, and then we'll get into it. I got it.
Okay.
So this next story, it takes place in Arkansas, and this is a story of Don Henry and Kevin Ives. And hold on. I've got a lot of information here, so... All right, so this takes place in Saline County, Arkansas, and this is on the morning of August 23rd. So, Unsolved Mysteries gives us this story of these 2 boys. They've been hanging out one night on August 22nd, and they've been hanging out with friends, and around midnight, Don Henry and Kevin Ives, they go back to Don's house and talk to his dad. And they say, hey, we're out. We're just going to hang out. We're going to keep hanging out. And they grab his .22 and a flashlight.
Yeah, they're going to go spotlighting.
They're going to go spotlighting.
What is spotlighting?
They spotlight the animals and then they shoot them. It's illegal. At that time in Arkansas. But
it's still legal just about everywhere.
Don is 16, Kevin is 17.
They're best friends.
They're best friends. They're teenage boys. They're just going out to have a good time.
Yeah, they'd been to a party, hanging out in a parking lot. They weren't ready to call it a night yet, so they're deciding to go out and go spotlighting deer.
Yeah. So Curtis Henry is the last one to see his son alive.
Okay.
He leaves around 12:15. And they head out into the woods, and they're never seen again. Around 4 a.m., here comes a train. And we actually get interviewed by the train
The conductor?
The conductor.
This interview was heartbreaking. He seemed to really struggle with what he saw.
Yeah, Scheuer is his name. He says they're coming down the tracks.
Mm-hmm. It's pitch black.
It's dark. The train is like 6,000 tons. It's over a mile long. And he says they see something on the tracks. And when they get close enough to see what it is, they realize it's 2 bodies. And what he sees is 2 bodies laying parallel with each other. They're laying on the tracks. Their feet are off the tracks, but they're laying side by side. And he also says he sees there's a green tarp covering them, laying next to them, and is the gun, and they're like perfectly parallel with their arms to their sides.
Mm-hmm.
But once he figures out what he sees, they hit the brakes. As we all know, this train,
it's not stopping. He said about 3 to 5 seconds.
He said he saw 3 to 5 seconds
before impact.
And he says, like, it was the longest 3 to 5
Yeah.
seconds of his life.
And they're laying on the horn. And anyone
Yeah,
that's heard those horns.
Well, they say like it's over like 90 decibels. Like it is loud. It's this diesel
Yeah.
horn, but it says it takes them a half a mile to stop
Yeah.
this train. This train just runs over these boys and mangles them. So, Saline County comes out and does an investigation. Well,
Yes, supposedly.
supposedly. And what happens is the medical examiner does an autopsy and determines that these boys had smoked what he said up to 20 marijuana cigarettes, and that they were so drugged that they passed out on the train tracks.
Sure. And
that-
they don't just say that to the family, like, hey,
yeah,
they publish this in the news repeatedly, like a beware teenagers,
Well, this
the
isn't-
dangers of marijuana.
this isn't like a huge city here.
No, it's a small community.
It's a small
right?
community. So
But 20 marijuana cigarettes?
that's what he says.
He's an idiot.
So he says that that's the boys. The boys' death is then said to be an accident.
So they smoked 20 marijuana cigarettes, grabbed a green tarp and a gun, and laid down side by
went to go
side,
spotlight, and then they got
tired, took a nap, and
yeah,
thought the train tracks is
this
a great
good
place. Okay.
So
That all checks out. Don't ask any
this
questions.
is where Unsolved Mysteries comes in. They tell us, listen, the parents are upset.
The mother,
The parents are upset
yeah,
because,
she is not backing down off of
Yeah.
this.
well, the whole family, both the families are
Yeah.
not backing down. Mm-hmm. So they actually, so I said this was August 22nd, 1987, right? So this episode aired in 1988 of the fall. So it was a few months after these boys' death. The family hires a private investigator. He's stonewalled by the sheriff's office and the medical examiner. And so 5 months later, after their death, they hold a press conference. And they were pretty much like, listen, we don't like our boys were not drug addicts.
Yeah, they were like, we were around our children. We had decent relationships with them.
Yeah.
We would have known if they were that heavy into illicit drug, whatever. Like,
They say it just doesn't match their sons.
Yeah.
So the day after their press conference, the deputy prosecuting attorney in Saline County, his name is Richard Garrett, calls the families and says, hey, listen, I want to take your case. I want to relook at it. So he reopens it and, they end up doing a grand jury case, like bringing it forth a grand jury. He exhumes the bodies, and he has another medical examiner, a very, well-known medical examiner, come out and relook at it. Mm-hmm. Here's our shocking piece. He determines that the boys did not smoke 20
no,
marijuana.
they had a little bit of THC in their system, but not.
He said that the equivalent between the two of them is 1 to 3.
So they shared a joint.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, they were hanging out the evening before
Yeah.
they went spotlighting, where we think that that's probably what happened, right? Mm-hmm. We're making assumptions here. But he also determines that, like, listen, most likely one of them was dead or unconscious before they even were laid on the tracks.
Yeah, there's no way that they were laying that parallel, that still, all of that.
So the grand jury actually changes it and determines that these boys' death was a probable homicide.
Yeah.
And then they look even further into the clothes, and determined that one of the boys' shirts had what appeared to be stab wounds. So it was changed to definite homicide. And that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us.
Yeah.
Say,
Yeah,
hey,
I mean, it's a fairly, like, it's a tragedy when you're watching it, but it definitely seems like, hey, this is an unsolved mystery. But you're saying that what it actually leads to is a huge deep dive into a lot of things, including several high-ranking officials, law enforcement.
before I get into that, so they interview towards the end there at the episode. They interview Richard Garrett, and he talks about that tarp, right? That was laid over the boys, and he thinks it's significant because he thinks someone laid these boys.
Yeah, they
there.
didn't leave with the tarp.
No one knows where this tarp came from. Someone laid those boys there and then covered them up with this tarp. And supposedly the Saline County Sheriff's Office never recovered the tarp. And they tried to tell the conductor, hey man, it was just a figment of your imagination. And there was 3 guys on that train. And all 3 of them say, no, we saw that tarp. And they're interviewing that conductor and he's like, listen, you trying to tell me that tarp didn't exist? He's like, there's just no way. It exists. I know it did. And so that's one thing they kind of hone in on Unsolved Mysteries is, there's that. And like these boys are laid parallel. Like their positioning is weird.
There's a lot of this that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
The parents had every right to be like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So that, again, like I said, that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us. If you have any information, we've now, like, literally, as this is airing, they have determined this is a definite homicide. Who, what, when, they have no idea. So anyone that has information. So,
okay.
Are you ready for your update?
Let's hear the updates.
It's still unsolved.
Yeah.
It is. Now, that's that's the gist of it, okay?
That's the simplest answer.
The simplest answer I can give you is it is unsolved. These boys' death has never been solved. But this story blew up. This story has become a big deal in your world, I guess.
Yeah.
Been multiple podcasts. There was actually a book written about it. I don't have the author's name, but it's called The Boys on the Tracks.
Okay.
There's been other multiple podcasts done. I listened to a podcast called The Trail Went Cold. So shout out to that one. If you guys are interested in diving more deep into this story after you hear it, I'll give you a little bit. He does a 2-parter on it. He lays out what happens and then he lays out.
Because the timeline between the amount of time and the people is very confusing. You need almost like the board with the red string going
I
around.
have pages of notes here, and I have a page and a half of just people, names of people that are supposedly
had a hand in somehow
or tied to this case. So that's what I'm trying to tell us is our update. It's not an easy update. The simple update is that this has never been solved. This has never been solved. But let me at least let us start here.
Yeah.
I will give you the update on the multiple investigations that have been done.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of conspiracies. Now, I'm not going to dive into all the conspiracies. I started looking into this, and it will send you down rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Now, I don't like true crime. But I will tell you what I do like. I love a good conspiracy.
They're fun.
They're fun. But I'm also the person, like, I do not buy into conspiracies unless you can absolutely prove it, which that's what makes it not a conspiracy, is if you can prove it.
See, and I buy into them a little bit easier because...
But I love the idea.
I can't remember what comic or what I saw this, but they were like, you don't believe in any conspiracies because you're also saying if that's the case, the government's batting 1,000?
No, I 100% think that there are some good conspiracies out there. But I'll never say anything is definite until it's definite, right? But then once it's definite, it's not a conspiracy, obviously. But
I just think the government likes to keep a lot of information from us, especially if it makes them look bad.
But I will say this. I love the idea of a good conspiracy. Like, I like movies where, like, it's government
Twists
corruption.
and turns and yeah,
you know, and all this crazy
misdirection
stuff
and
happening behind, like, you know, the behind the scenes, all that stuff. Love that. I love that
Okay,
stuff.
well, give us the thing.
So, Saline County clearly didn't do it when these boys first died. They did a terrible job investigating it. I guess even after this was ruled a definite homicide, the sheriff of Saline County, whose name was Jim Steed, said, "We don't care. I will not allocate funds to investigate this further." Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah. But we'll say this. The grand jury pretty much says they believe, from all the evidence and the witnesses that came forward during that time after they reopened it, and Richard Garrett, and there's going to be another man, we'll dive into him, Don Harmon. They're the ones that kind of pushed forward this case in Saline County. After the grand jury, they pretty much say, hey, they believe these boys' deaths are related to drugs. And we're going to get into why that is. But
not their drugs. This wasn't like the boys' marijuana cigarette.
That there is there's a massive drug problem in Saline County, and they think it was related to drug activity in the area. But we don't know how or what. So, here's the couple investigations that did happen. Back in 93, Saline County Sheriff's Office reopened the investigation, and they put John Brown in charge of it. He was an investigator, and he actually found a witness who said he saw the boys that night, and he saw them meet up with 5 people. We're going to get into that, into his story. He said he saw them, and when he brought this forth, he actually took this witness to the FBI.
Okay.
And the FBI then opened an investigation, put this guy in protective custody, and then closed their investigation 18 months later. So
there was enough of something for them to put a man in protective custody, but then 18 months later said nothing to see here, move along?
Yeah, pretty much.
Interesting.
So I can't even explain how many webs this thing
I know.
goes
You
into.
got to stick with just titillate everybody's senses here.
So
then, because there's podcasts and books. If they're really interested into this, then
yeah. And then there's a lady named Jean Duffy who does an investigation in Saline County about the drug activity, which then it leads her to more of this stuff, and it turns into a disaster.
So the big thing to know is that there is a small airport, right?
So this is why they think this is connected to drugs.
Okay.
Because supposedly in the 80s, there is called the Mina Airport, which was supposedly tied to a bunch of drugs, and it supposedly had ties to the CIA.
So drugs being flown in, cash probably being flown out.
So what they're saying is drugs are being flown into the Mina Airport, guns and money are being flown out.
And the CIA is helping orchestrate this.
Yes. So
you're telling me that the government sometimes gives weapons and money to people outside of our borders?
So supposedly at that time in the 80s, Nicaragua was going through a massive
civil war, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were helping fund and arm the Contras.
Okay.
This is,
It's just like, because it's like, and then when Fast and Furious came, the government's like, we would never do anything like that. I'm like, but you did. And you do.
And this story now we're getting into conspiracies here. This story is tied supposedly to Clinton, Bush, Reagan, all that stuff.
Because all those were the main players in political
Clinton was
power.
the governor of Arkansas at the time.
He had connections.
There's rumors
to
that
all kinds of.
he knew what was happening at the Mina airport. So Linda Ives, the mother of one of the boys, she doesn't let this go. She still
She passed away a couple years ago.
Recently.
Yeah.
But to her death, like she
did not let it go.
Let this go. And she is convinced that her son's death is connected to the Mina airport. She thinks according to her, what she thinks happens is drugs are being flown in there, and then from Mina, drugs are being dropped in Saline County. There was rumors and there was a lot of witnesses saying that there was low-flying aircrafts that would come and they would fly along the railroad tracks.
Because it's an easy marker for planes to travel along.
And they would dump drugs.
Okay. Do we know what kind of drugs? Did they ever talk about that?
Well,
I guess
there's different players in here who supposedly were cocaine dealers.
Okay.
And they were that. So, and actually John Brown spoke to a pilot who confessed that he was a pilot that flew that route.
Oh, okay.
He would line up with the lights along the thing, and then he would do that. So we do have one witness that said that.
Okay.
So
she thinks they were out.
She thinks that they were out spotlighting, came across some type of drug deal that went wrong, and were killed for it. So let me go back to that grand jury, right?
Okay.
Richard Garrett, when he reopened it, he brought in his law partner, and his name was Don Harmon.
Oh, was this the guy on the quote from the show that was kind of weird? Because it didn't make sense if you didn't know anything about this? About the guy that now carries a gun?
That was Richard Garrett. And that was weird because Richard Garrett at the end of this literally makes a quote like...
Yeah, so he's in the Unsolved Mystery episode, and he says, now at this time, you're just talking about two boys found on a track.
Yeah.
And he says that before this, he never carried a gun with him. But that now he was in such fear of his life, he did not leave the house without packing heat.
Yeah.
And I was like, weird. Wait, it didn't fit in with the rest of the story we were hearing on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah. So, okay. Richard Garrett brings in his law partner, Don Harmon. Everyone remember that name? That guy is massive in this story. Don Harmon, they all meet up with a judge. Also remember this name. Let me see. Sorry. John Cole. He's a judge in Saline County. And John Cole appoints Don Harmon as
the medical examiner.
The special prosecutor.
Oh, special prosecutor. Okay.
Special prosecutor to oversee this case. Okay.
Okay.
And this is where things get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because Don Harmon, we find out later, not a good dude.
Yeah.
Don Harmon ends up going to prison for 11 years for drugs and...
What?
Yeah, all kinds of things. Supposedly he was abusing his wife.
Shocking.
Yeah. In 97, this guy ends up going to prison for a while.
Yeah.
And then gets out and still commits crime. I think he's dead now. So not a good dude, but he's put over this case by the judge, John Cole. He starts bringing people in to the grand jury to testify.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people end up dead.
Oh, yeah. There is a lot of deaths attached to this.
When you start diving into this, things get weird.
So I won't even give you the names, but I have a list right here.
Yeah, I'm only going to go into a few of them.
At least 5 witnesses were found dead.
Yes. Here is the few names that these people end up dying, and it's weird because they're tied to the case, supposedly. First one is Keith Coney.
Keith Conan, yep. He was scheduled to testify.
Didn't show up. He died in a motorcycle accident in May of 1988. Okay?
Oh, I have January 1989 on my notes, but...
That's a different guy.
Okay.
I know who you're talking about. That's Greg Collins. We're going to get into him too. But there's going to be a lot of names, and I'm going to try to keep this simple.
Okay.
The reason Keith Coney is significant and why it's weird that he ended up dying. Because, sorry, I'm going to throw more names at you. There's a guy. Because there's a guy who supposedly witnessed something weird that night. There's actually two people that witnessed something weird. Okay? Ronnie Godwin says that he was driving home drunk, saw an off-duty or an undercover police car or an unmarked police car in the parking lot of a grocery store. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to get a DUI, so he pulled into the lot across the street. He said he saw two boys come to the grocery store to try to use a payphone, supposedly, or whatever. And he said they were plainclothes police officers, beat them, put them in the trunk of a car, and drove off. He waited around a few minutes. The police showed up without the two boys.
Okay.
Okay?
So that's the guy that died.
No, this is Ronnie Godwin.
Okay.
So we're talking about the death of, I know this gets so confusing, Keith Coney.
Okay.
But then there's another guy who also, he comes forward. His name is Jerry. We don't know his last name, but he tells the same story. He tells a guy, and we're getting this from a third party. He tells a guy by the name of Mike Crook that he saw these two kids get beat up by two police officers, but he saw a kid on a motorcycle with these two young boys that he believed were Don Henry and Kevin Ives.
Okay.
He saw these two police officers beat him up, put him in the trunk. So we have two people that said that, and one of them said he saw these boys with a guy on a motorcycle. Not too long after that, guess what happened to Keith Coney? He dies in a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
Witnesses say that he was being chased.
So between 1988 and 1990, 5 people were dead, all classified as murder cases. No arrests have been made. In a county of, several thousand? I mean, even if a couple 100,000, 5 murders to take place.
Yeah. So
all connected back to somehow they were either going to testify or were witnesses or had given statements about this case.
Yeah. So the next weird one is Keith McCaskill.
Okay. McCaskill.
And Keith McCaskill was the owner of a club, and he was supposedly an informant for the police. Okay. He supposedly, in November of 1988, so just over a year of the boys' murder, there's an election for the sheriff.
Yes.
We all already know.
Sheriff Steed.
Steed.
Yeah.
Guess what? And the election was not too long after this Unsolved Mysteries episode airs.
Okay, so Steed
doesn't win elections. Yeah. It was said that McCaskill was walking around his club a couple days before the election and pretty much saying, if Steed doesn't win this election, I'm a dead man. Like, I'm in trouble.
Uh-oh.
And Steed loses the election. 2 days later.
2 days, yeah.
McCaskill is found outside of his apartment, wrapped in a
saran wrap, plastic wrap, green tarp.
Yeah, a
tinfoil,
shower curtain.
Shower curtain.
Stabbed over 100 times.
100 times?
Yes. Supposedly his neighbor, Ronald Smith, was convicted. He had bloody clothes. He tells some crazy stories, but I guess Ronald Smith is not the brightest guy. He's got like an IQ of 81. Turns out like he was convicted of that murder, but Arkansas Supreme Court ended up overturning it. He goes free. We still don't really know who killed McCaskill.
Wow.
Yeah. Then we have some other murders that supposedly they were friends with these people or friends with McCaskill. and that were rumored to be involved in the drug world there, and they all end up dead within like a year of all of this happening.
Yeah.
So, here's the reason why McCaskill is important of why he died.
Okay.
Because when John Brown, remember I was telling you he reopened the investigation in 93, he found a witness. This witness, I told you, he went to the FBI, was put in protective custody. I was telling you that. He says this witness was Tom Niehaus. He says he saw McCaskill. He IDs McCaskill and Don Harmon as two of like multiple people at the tracks when the boys were killed. That's where McCaskill comes into play, why he's a player, and they're talking about his death being weird. They think he was involved in the drug program, in the drug world there, and that they have a witness IDing. They also found another witness, and her name is Charlene Wilson. She supposedly
Girlfriend
of Don Harmon.
Okay.
She also IDs Harmon and McCaskill. There. Well, and the Niehaus, I will say this about Mr. Tom Niehaus.
Do you guys hear all those pages shuffling in the background? Like, I am not kidding you. Ben has pages of notes on this.
So I guess I should say, Niehaus says that he was 10 years old at the time. So take that for what it is. Okay.
But it's not like his story's that far off from what everyone else is saying.
Yeah. So, So Charlene IDs Don and McCaskill. She actually also says that she was there.
Oh.
She was present. She then writes a statement. This is several years later. She actually admits that she stabbed one of the boys in the back.
Good night.
Yeah. She was high on drugs that night.
20 marijuana cigarettes.
Yeah. And so those are our witnesses. That's things that are these people are tied to this case. It just goes down so many rabbit holes.
So I'll put this out there for everybody. Ben mentioned a book and a podcast that you can check out. I will give you guys, there is a website called idfiles.com.
Yes.
idfiles.com. It has got editorials. It has got all kinds of information on documentary videos, journalisms, Ron's pages. It's got a list of the bad guys. It's got extensive research on interviews, including like grand jury information, trials, scandals. The big thing, and I actually already did this, is there is a petition on there. I think they're having a lot of problems getting some of the Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, so
because this is technically not solved.
Yeah, so Linda had filed the Freedom of Information Act with the FBI because they did an investigation. Took her forever.
Oh, that they closed.
Yeah, and she did get him back. And
everything's redacted.
There's a bunch of stuff redacted. So I'm sorry. Let me go back. I need to clarify what I said.
Okay.
Niehaus did not identify McCaskill. I read those wrong notes. It was Charlene that identified McCaskill at the... Niehaus said he saw the boys come in, run into these guys. They ran off, and then they left. That's where people think... That's where they think these boys ran into a drug deal. They ran off.
To the store. Tried to call for help.
Got picked up by two crooked cops and brought back and were killed.
Okay.
So I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'd rather do a correction now than trying to figure out.
I messed up my two eyewitness stories there.
Yeah. So I highly recommend if you guys check out the book, check out the podcast, do all those things. But this website has a ton of information, as well as trying to get a petition signed. They're trying to hit 15,000 signatures. So far, there's only 11,731. They are asking for a release of the documents so that they can have access to all of the information. So that would be, to me, one of the things we can still do with Unsolved Mysteries is the more we share and get these stories in front of the public, the more likely they are to be solved.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, like I said, if you start going down this rabbit hole, because there's also a lady named Jean Duffy, who I'd mentioned earlier. She was actually over the 7th Judicial District.
I think she's the one that did this website.
She does the website.
Okay, yeah.
With Linda.
With the mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so. She was put in charge of investigating drugs that were going on in that county, and she was told, "Hey, don't investigate."
She was told specifically, "Don't investigate
county
people."
Officials. But it turns out, like, everything she had led to county officials. That's where Don Harmon comes back into this. Like, his name keeps popping up. Like, it just appears, the more you dig in, everyone in that county at the time was crooked and involved.
So it went from county to state to federal.
Yeah.
And basically, there's a spider web between all three of... There's a thread of all three of those. Crossing... I mean, I guess here, you want to cross the aisle and shake hands with someone from the other party, get involved in a scandal, because then, like you said, this crosses, there's Democrat, there's Republican, there's city, state, like federal, all kinds of stuff that normally don't work well together.
Yeah, all I'm telling you is this, every time you start picking up one thread, it leads to 10 others.
Yeah.
We could go on forever. Like, this is... I found so much other stuff on different things. But here's the thing. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to talk like I am, like I understand all of this.
Well, and I think as much as people love our podcast, they don't want to hear us talk for 6 hours on something.
And I've only been looking at it for a little while, so I'm not even going to say like I understand it, and you're making a lot of assumptions. Every time you kind of look, it's like, oh, I can see how this leads to that. There's assumptions that lead to politicians, all that. But it is clear that these boys were one. It wasn't an accident.
They didn't share a joint and take a nap on the train tracks. We know that. This was a murder.
They were clearly killed. That county clearly had some issues going on. And
for some reason, that county, at bare minimum, tried to cover up the death of these two boys.
Yeah. Clearly, there was some issues going on in that county, which now, and it wasn't just people on the street. There was even some officials involved in, I'm not saying their murders, but they were clearly involved in activity they shouldn't have. Darn Harmon being
nefarious.
One of them, and so because of that, it has led to multiple conspiracy theories.
Okay. Well, I think we've given everybody enough information that
go look into it.
Look into it, and Ben.
It'll be.
It's gonna keep him up for days because.
No, once we're done with this, I can put it away.
I can't do that. You're just gonna be done with it.
Yeah, because as long as I'm researching it to tell people, I'll dig and dig. But once this is over, it's over. I'm done. I'm done with it. I don't need. I
cannot
to look
imagine
into it
being
anymore.
able to compartmentalize information like that.
It's over. It's done.
Okay. So I will give us our third story, which is a weird one. It's a little lighthearted. It's about a man named Dennis Walker. Okay? Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, and Pete Rose.
I love that you're doing this.
What do they all have in common? They're sports guys.
What sport?
Baseball.
Very good.
And they are super popular and the best.
Are you asking a question?
And the best at what they do. Right? So that's how we're going to start this off at. We started this episode off, or the recap of this is a man in black and white running on the television with a baseball. I don't know who that was.
Babe Ruth.
Okay. Was color television
The
around for
Great
Mickey Mantle?
Bambino. No.
Okay.
Mickey Mantle's in the 50s.
Okay, but Pete Rose a little newer?
80s.
Okay.
70s and 80s.
But okay. So we got a wide range here of ages.
Oh, dear.
Okay. So 34-year-old Dennis Walker was a child and collected baseball cards.
Okay.
Okay. Except he was a man at 34 years old. Okay. He was super into sports memorabilia. And he collected items that belonged to those 3 baseball guys that I mentioned, amongst other famous people in baseball, I think. I think it was just baseball. His collection was valued at over $10 million, adjusted for inflation, Ben.
What year are we at?
1980-ish.
1980?
Ish.
39.
38 million.
Okay.
Okay. So Walker has an investment company in his hometown of Medford, Oregon.
Well,
We love Medford.
of course.
Okay.
It's Oregon.
It's Oregon. It's close to our group. I've spent a lot of time in Medford. Also, we get zero information on this. He owned a bank in one of the South Pacific Islands. That's it. That's all Unsolved Mysteries gives us.
So vague in this one.
Yeah. Okay. No further information on the bank. However, more than 140 people, I'm guessing in and around the town of Medford, gave Walker several million dollars to invest over the years. Okay. He owned an investment company, including his employees. They trusted him and invested a lot with him as well. Now, what I don't understand and what, again, we don't get any context on is he was paying people their interest payments. He offered a rate of return of 25%.
I want that.
Yeah, we all do. Also, that's not a thing. But somehow, at the time that he's starting to get this money from investors, he also really gets extra heavily into his baseball collection. He starts buying things up. We got rings. I guess that's a thing. I thought the Super Bowl gave the ring. No? Does the Super Bowl give you a ring?
Yeah. I'm just going to let her roll with this and see how it goes.
Were they baseball rings or Super Bowl
You
rings?
have World Series rings. You have Super Bowl rings. Like,
A Stanley Cup? What else do we have out there?
you get a ring
Okay, you get a ring.
for
So
winning.
they were rings and cards and uniform tops.
He had Babe Ruth's 1927 World Series ring.
Okay, big deal.
And he had his uniform.
Mm-hmm.
He had Mickey Mantle's uniform.
Okay.
I mean, he had some pretty sweet stuff.
Okay. He had a big collection. I collected Beanie Babies. He collected baseball cards.
Yeah.
He made, obviously, the more better choice.
I was to say, I
in
think
the
he made a little
investment.
bit more money off of his stuff.
So he acquires so much stuff that he leases a building in downtown Medford, opens up a sports memorial museum, and
Sports Memorial?
memorabilia. It's where sports go to die.
What in the... Yeah. Memorabilia. He, like a
A
sports
sports
memorabilia. Hall of Fame.
memorabilia museum, which if you tried to take me to
That
a
would be
sports memorabilia museum, I would have the biggest headache before we even walked in the door. Okay?
As you can tell, Sierra's not a big into sports.
And I like hockey. And I don't mind. I like baseball. It's fine. I just don't understand. I don't understand the worship around these people. That's all. But big man Pete Ross shows up.
Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. He showed up as a special guest and also gave him a bunch of his toys and said, "Here you go."
Toys.
So he has all of these things in a museum. For some reason, we get a Medford police detective saying that in 1989, they obtained a search warrant for Walker's office. The state police were watching Walker for over a year, suspicious of his activities. They charged him with fraud based on evidence they found. The authorities, however, had trouble getting the case to go forward because none of the investors believed that they were being cheated out of any money. Who called in this tip?
I don't know.
We don't know. No one decides to tell us.
So I was thinking about this.
Okay.
Because they're talking to the detective and they say, like, they found evidence that he'd been selling
Unregistered bonds or unregistered investments or whatever.
securities.
Securities, yeah.
Right. And so
I'm guessing illegal.
I don't know a lot about these crimes, but I am guessing you went to people as an investment firm.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to guess under the pretenses that you're going to take their money and invest it into these securities of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it appeared he was just borrowing from his company
And buying
toys.
toys.
Sports memorabilia, which...
Yeah, this makes me think of like when I used to tell my mom that I needed like $5 for lunch, but actually I was just going to like split a pepperoni pizza with my friend so I could have money to go like to Dutch Bros or something, or to buy, I guess in this aspect, a toy,
So,
a lollipop.
I mean,
I don't know, but like that's kind of what it seemed like. Maybe the police thought he was doing, was taking money and using it.
well, I guess he's technically taking money, saying...
All of his employees said the value of the sports memorabilia was the investment. Like it was liquid. It was a ton of money.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm just thinking out loud on this.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing a guess out there. But when you run a company and you say, hey, you're taking in this money and it's for these reasons, and then you take that money from your company and go buy this other stuff, and that, like...
Yeah, I don't know anything about the world of investing and what their limits are on what they do with that money, but
I guess
it was just weird to me because his employees and his investors were actually reporting that they were getting paid, and they had never complained to the authorities. Walker even countersued the police. And I thought this was funny. The police kept summoning him to court. He just didn't show up.
I know.
That is a baller move. Can you imagine being summoned to court and not showing up? I would be terrified.
They're coming for you.
Oh, I would be there with bells and ribbons on. No, you asked me to be there, I'm there. But yeah, I just think the fact that he's like, I'm not coming. I don't care. So Walker had started to believe his biggest concern is that the state would come in and seize his
assets,
aka his baseball cards and uniforms and bats and gloves
and rings.
Yes, the rings. Okay. And I will say, fair. That's a terrifying thought, because if that's the case, that's potentially your liquid assets. If the state seizes them, they're gone. You're not getting them back.
Yeah.
So he had a coworker pack everything up. The coworker is interviewed, and he's like, "I thought it was a great idea. I didn't want
I didn't want the state to get.
I didn't want the state to get him
on this."
Yeah. And
Sandy Sanders.
Yeah,
that was his name.
Sandy Sanders has no problem evading law enforcement at this point. So,
I mean, technically they hadn't seized it yet. So
yeah, they hadn't, but
still
I
his.
think there's been several like famous cases of celebrities not paying their taxes, and they start trying to hide off assets and sell things, or like move things hidden around before the IRS comes in. They don't mess around. They're going to find that stuff. They're not going to believe when they go into your mansion that it's magically empty. You've just been sleeping on the air mattress. Okay. So anyways, he packs all of this stuff up, and in April of 1989, Walker leaves Medford, Oregon. He is never seen alive again. 16 months later, July 5th, 1987, a man by the name of Charles Lee was found dead in the bathroom of a Las Vegas hotel room. Authorities found a pill bottle on the counter with the name Dennis Walker on the label. Dental records confirmed that the dead man was Walker. However, a cause of death could not be determined. It is still unknown if his death was accident, suicide, or homicide.
Murder.
We really missed the ball on that one. We did not say it together. Let's try that again.
Well, you said homicide.
I did say homicide.
Said murder.
Okay, let's do murder. 1, 2, 3. Murder. Authorities would like to determine how Walker died. That's what they're asking for in Unsolved Mysteries. And it'd be super cool if they could find the rest of his toys.
Yeah, because none of that memorabilia.
Yeah.
It's
to
gone.
date, a few things have been found. I think one of the T-shirts from someone was found.
It's not a T-shirt. It's a uniform.
A jersey.
A uniform.
And
Babe's uniform and his World Series ring have been recovered.
That's it.
That's it.
So I tried to do my attention span on this was pretty little. And of course, then when I was typing in some information about missing sports memorabilia, it was an ESPN article. So I really didn't hold my attention too much. But, okay, in May of 2021, Kelly Cohan and Dan Hajducky.
I don't think that's right.
Okay. Hajducky. Hajducky. What is it?
I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure that ain't it.
Okay, well.
What's it? H what?
Haj.
H-A-J.
Ducky. D-U-C-K-Y.
That is Ducky.
Yes. Hajducky.
I don't think that's how he says it, but.
Okay, well, they co-wrote an article from ESPN called Inside the Mysterious World of Missing Sports Memorabilia. Okay, it was a riveting piece. Okay, yeah. They talk about some of the things. There's actually a lot of missing sports memorabilia. It's a weird black market sort of thing. One of the big things, and I did not know this, so fun fact for everybody. There is, still to this day, several things missing in sports memorabilia, but they point out a few of the quote-unquote holy grails. The number one holy grail. The chip shot seen around the world. Do you know anything about this?
The what?
The chip shot?
No.
Okay. So, on the moon, the astronaut Alan Shepard hit 2 golf shots. Did you know this?
No.
Okay. The golf balls are still there.
On the moon.
On the moon.
Okay.
Okay.
I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, I think if someone could figure out how to get those, they'd be pretty well off. But they'd have a lot of money to get to the moon to start with. But, okay. So, there's 2 balls. One is about 40 yards from where Shepard swung a makeshift 6-iron club that he snuck onto Apollo 14 without NASA knowing.
Big trouble.
Ooh, he's a rebel. He's a bad boy astronaut. And the other one is 24 yards away. So I don't know if that's a good shot or not. 24 yards with a 6-iron or 40 yards. Could go either way.
Could go either way.
Under par. That's all I know. Shepard's club is in the USGA Golf Museum. So the club made it back. However, the NASA officials were upset about this donation and actually tried to get the clubs back because they believe technically it wasn't his property to give because he makeshifted it out of NASA stuff. Okay? So this is getting the balls back. I'm such a child.
What?
Getting the balls back would be the billionaire's scavenger hunt. So if you can go find the balls, you're in the billionaire scavenger hunt. Okay? I don't know. Then there's a bunch of others. Some Jackie Robinson's first Dodger jersey is still missing. Bobby Thomas's shot heard around the world. The guy I think that caught that ball. No one knows where that's at. Kirk Gibson's home run ball also missing. Don't know who that guy is.
Is this stuff that Dennis Walker had?
No.
Okay. This is just missing.
I am just like going off on the fact
world.
that sports memorabilia stuff tends to go missing.
Well,
there's like a whole underground dark thing for it, and I don't know.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not really like no one even knows it's of importance until later, you know?
Yeah, because it's a toy.
Well, it's not a toy.
It's a baseball.
It's not a toy.
A glove.
No,
a bat.
It's not a toy.
Agree to disagree. But
I think it's sad because I love baseball.
You do.
I am a huge
and our
baseball
daughter
fan.
so we have 2 boys and a girl, and they all 3 love watching baseball with you.
Yes.
And I'm so happy you guys have that together.
Yeah. We're big Diamondbacks fans.
I like to go to the Diamondbacks games.
Go D-backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's sad that all this stuff is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my theory.
I think, you and I probably share the same theory on this.
The mob.
The Las Vegas hotel room with an unknown cause of death. All the investors, everyone is happy. In fact, they're giving interviews with smiles on their faces. At the end of the day, with that memorabilia being gone and him being dead, no one got their money.
Well, the mob got their money back.
That's what I have a feeling. I think they got mad at him for buying baseball cards.
Well, they're like, that's fine. That's like, we're not going to go to the police.
No.
We'll just get our money back.
Mm-hmm.
Because we'll take care of you, and then we'll take it all back in your property.
Yeah.
And we've got all this sports memorabilia now, and it's worth it. It's worth what we invested with you.
Yeah.
And then some. And
yeah.
Dead.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, this Unsolved Mysteries episode, none of these have been solved.
No.
All 3 still remain a mystery.
Mystery.
So, that is our main part of our episode. I'm going to pull up my notes here. So before we move on to our couples a question to end the podcast, I just wanted to share some of our information. So you can email us at unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com. We also have a Facebook group where I post every week what we talked about, so that if we want to continue the conversation and throw out theories, then you can find that on Facebook at Unsolved Couple Podcasts under groups. Our Instagram is Unsolved Couple Pod, and we would really appreciate any ratings. Not any ratings, let's be honest. 5-star would be preferred ratings.
It's the only one we want.
It's the only ones we want. If anything's under 5, just shoot me an email.
If you're not happy.
If you're not happy, you feel free to exit stage left and we'll wish you on your way.
We hope that you are, but...
Yeah. So rate, review, share us with your friends. Ben and I have been enjoying doing this, and we'll keep showing up until someone tells us not to. So, Ben, how did you feel, I guess, about this episode?
It's a little crazy. It's a little all over.
Did you ever think that something on Unsolved Mysteries would send you down several hours worth of rabbit hole?
Yeah, and our listeners are probably pulling their heads out because it was a little tobacco, but it's at the end of the day, boys died, and it's still a mystery. And yeah, that one turned out to be a little on the crazy side. That one, I think this is our first one that actually blew up to be something kind of big later on. You guys in your true crime world, there's lots of
true crime enthusiast. Please.
Yeah, there's lots of, you guys still talk about cases that are 10, 15, 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And this is the first one that showed up on Unsolved Mysteries that is still a big deal today,
Yeah.
so far. I'm sure we'll come across more.
Yeah.
Obviously. I mean, I guess DB Cooper is still a big one. But I guess this is our first episode where they're talking about stories that people are still talking about today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is your question, Benjamin.
Okay.
If you were forced to be in a reality TV show, which one would it be?
Are you freaking kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. You have to pick one.
None.
That's not on the list.
I don't even know
Pick one.
reality TV, just alone. And I would quit within 12 hours.
Ben's like, I just wanted to come check out Alaska or
I
whatever
just
weird
wanted to
part
see
of the
this
world.
cool thing, and once
Maybe you'll stay the night and then be like, yeah, I'm good.
I'm kind of hungry, and I want to go home and get some
Didn't
food.
get a good night of sleep.
Yeah.
Could use a monster,
Yeah, I could use a monster
some
to
caffeine,
drink
and a shower.
and a steak.
A steak dinner.
Yeah. So, yeah, alone would probably be it, because then I wouldn't have to deal with anybody.
Okay.
And then I would just pick up the phone and say, come get me. And I would be the guy that everyone makes fun of because I'm out episode 1. Mm-hmm. But then I'm forgotten.
Here's the thing. You can't get made fun of on Alone episode 1 for tapping out if you don't talk a big game. The people that talk a big
they're the
game
best.
and then within several hours are in tears, you're like, those people deserved to get made fun of.
That's like, it was the guy in, I think it was season 1. Yeah, they're showing him talking to his family before he leaves. It's like, they're gonna have to drag me out of there, and within like a couple hours.
Yeah, he was
I
out.
think within 6 hours, he was already tapping. It was great.
But our favorite star from Alone
It's Larry.
Larry.
Here's the thing. I can't make fun of any of these people because they made it farther. They would make it farther than me because I wouldn't survive alone.
Oh, no. No.
But that guy earlier told me, oh, I just had a pocket knife and a lighter, I could.
You're good to go indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's my reality TV show.
Okay.
Because it would be quick and I'd be out. And I wouldn't have to deal with anyone.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, I don't like drama. I love to watch other people's drama, but like cringy, uncomfortable drama. So that eliminates also I'm married. So that eliminates how many of these reality shows have to do with single people.
Love is Blind.
Right? Love is Blind. I want to go on Love is Blind just so I can experience the shenanigans that take place in those pods. That is me and Ben's. One of our favorite things to do is watch that show and just tear it apart.
It's pure,
And
it's pure
I also
entertainment.
don't like crazy feats of strength. So Survivor, Alone, any of those extreme things. No, I don't want to do that. That's not fun.
I don't think it's supposed to be fun.
No, I don't want. You couldn't. No. Mm-mm. I'd have to be on some sort of cooking show. I would love to do any of the Food Network shows.
Okay. Can I change mine?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Nailed
Yep.
it. Because
Nailed
I'm a
it.
terrible
Yes,
cook.
I would go on Nailed It because here's the thing. I think I'm pretty good at cooking, but I also think that cooking under that kind of pressure and time strain is wild.
Yeah, but Nailed It is not there's a time frame, but no one cares.
No. It's so funny. So our family watches Nailed It all together, and our youngest son, he's watched all of the seasons multiple times. But in his world, to choose to get on TV, I just need to email Netflix and ask him if I can come on. And every year, when the new season of Nailed It drops, he asks me, Mom, can you please go on the show? Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way, but I think it's very sweet. But yeah, that would be a fun one to be on. That's the reality. I want to be on a lighthearted, fun show. And I want the judge that's the crazy cop from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, of course.
That guy's wild.
We all want him.
I
He's
know.
the best.
He is the best. And then I just want to yell, Wes!
Yeah.
So, look at that. But I think this is the first time we've actually
we agreed on something.
Yeah.
And I even changed it to something fun.
Something fun. Yeah.
That show would be fun because I would not take it seriously.
Well, and because
at
you
all.
can be ridiculous on that show, and it's like lighthearted and fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a great show.
it is. Okay, so that is our episode. We will see you guys again next Tuesday when Ben and I are back to recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.